Chapter 131. These are some of the reasons why I hate yellow and brown. Yellow. Number 1, custard. Number 2, bananas. Bananas also turn brown. Number 3, double yellow lines. Number 4, yellow fever, which is a disease from tropical America and West Africa, which causes a high fever, acute nephritis, jaundice, and hemorrhages, and is caused by a virus transmitted by the bite of a mosquito called Aedes aegypti, which used to be called Stegomyia fasciata. And nephritis is an inflammation of the kidneys. Number 5, yellow flowers, because I get hay fever from flower pollen, which is one of the three sorts of hay fever, and the others are from grass pollen and fungus pollen, and it makes me feel ill. And number 6, sweet corn, because it comes out in your poo and you don't digest it, so you're not really meant to eat it, like grass or leaves. Brown. Number 1, dirt. Number 2, gravy. Number 3, poo. Number 4, wood, because people used to make machines and vehicles out of wood. They don't anymore because wood breaks and goes rotten and has worms in it sometimes. And now people make machines and vehicles out of metal and plastic, which are much better and more modern. Number 5, Melissa Brown, who was a girl at school who was not actually brown like Anil or Muhammad. It's just her name. But she tore my big astronaut painting in two pieces, and I threw it away even after Mrs. Peters sellotaped it together again because it looked broken. Mrs. Forbes said that hating yellow and brown is just being silly. And Siobhan said she shouldn't say things like that, and everyone has favorite colors. And Siobhan was right. But Mrs. Forbes was a bit right too, because it is sort of being silly. But in life, you have to take lots of decisions. And if you don't take decisions, you never do anything because you spend all your time choosing between things you can do. So it's good to have a reason why you hate some things and you like others. It's like being in a restaurant, like when Father takes me out to a Bernie Inn. Sometimes you look at the menu and you have to choose what you're going to have, but you don't know if you're going to like something because you haven't tasted it yet. So you have favorite foods and you choose these, and you have foods you don't like and you don't choose these, and then it's simple. Chapter 137. The next day, Father said he was sorry that he had hit me and he didn't mean to. He made me wash the cut on my cheek with Dettol to make sure it wasn't infected. Then he got me to put a plaster on it so it didn't bleed. Then, because it was Saturday, he said he was going to take me on an expedition to show me that he was properly sorry and we're going to Twycross Zoo. So he made me some sandwiches with white bread and tomatoes and lettuce and ham and strawberry jam for me to eat, because I don't like eating food from places I don't know. And he said it would be okay because there wouldn't be too many people at the zoo because it was forecast to rain. And I was glad about that because I don't like crowds of people and I like it when it's raining. So I went and got my waterproof, which is orange. Then we drove to Twycross Zoo. I had never been to Twycross Zoo before, so I didn't have a route worked out in my mind before we got there. So we bought a guidebook from the information center, and then we walked around the whole zoo, and I decided which were my favorite animals. My favorite animals were: number 1, Randy Man, which is the name of the oldest red-faced black spider monkey ever kept in captivity. Randy Man is 44 years old, which is the same age as Father. He used to be a pet on a ship and have a metal band around his stomach, like in a story about pirates. Number 2, the Patagonian sea lions, which are called Miracle and Star. And number 3, Maliko, which is an orangutan. I liked it especially because he was lying in a kind of hammock made out of a pair of stripy green pajama bottoms. And on the blue plastic notice next to the cage, it said that he made the hammock himself. Then we went to the cafe, and Father had plaice and chips, and apple pie and ice cream, and a pot of Earl Grey tea. I had my sandwiches, and I read the guidebook to the zoo. And Father said, "I love you very much, Christopher. Don't ever forget that. And I know I lose my rag occasionally. I know I get angry. I know I shout. And I know I shouldn't. But I only do it because I worry about you, and because I don't want to see you getting into trouble, because I don't want you to get hurt. Do you understand?" I didn't know whether I understood, so I said, I don't know. And Father said, Christopher, do you understand that I love you? And I said, yes, because loving someone is helping them when they get into trouble and looking after them and telling them the truth. And Father looks after me when I get into trouble, like coming to the police station. And he looks after me by cooking meals for me, and he always tells the truth, which means that he loves me. Then he held up his right hand and spread his fingers out in a fan, and I held up my left hand and spread my fingers out into a fan, and we made our fingers and thumbs touch each other. Then I got out a piece of paper from my bag, and I did a map of the zoo from memory as a test. The map was like this. And then we went and looked at the giraffes. The smell of their poo was like the smell inside of a gerbil cage at school when we had gerbils. And when they ran, their legs were so long, it looked like they were running in slow motion. Then Father said we had to get home before the roads got busy. Chapter 139. I like Sherlock Holmes, but I do not like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who's the author of Sherlock Holmes stories. That's because he wasn't like Sherlock Holmes, and he believed in the supernatural. And when he got old, he joined the Spiritualist Society, which meant that he believed you could communicate with the dead. This is because his son died of influenza during the First World War, and he still wanted to talk to him. And in 1917, something famous happened called the Case of the Cottingley Fairies. Two cousins called Francis Griffiths, who was 9 years old, and Elsie Wright, who was 16-year-old, said they used to play with fairies by a stream called Cottingley Beck, and they used Francis's father's camera to take 5 photographs of the fairies like this. But they weren't real fairies. They were drawings on pieces of paper that they cut out and stood up with pins, because Elsie was a really good artist. Harold Snelling, who was an expert in fake photography, said, "These dancing figures are not made of paper nor any fabric. They are not painted on a photographic background, but what gets me most is that all these figures have moved during the exposure." But he was being stupid, because paper would move during an exposure, and the exposure was very long, because in the photograph you can see a little waterfall in the background and it is blurred. Then Sir Arthur Conan Doyle heard about the pictures, and he said he believed they were real in an article in a magazine called The Strand. But he was being stupid too, because if you look at the pictures, you can see that these fairies look just like fairies in old books and have wings and dresses and tights and shoes, which is like aliens landing on Earth and being like Daleks from Doctor Who, or Imperial stormtroopers from the Death Star in Star Wars, or little green men like in cartoons of aliens. And in 1981, a man called Joe Cooper interviewed Elsie Wright and Francis Griffiths for an article in a magazine called The Unexplained. Elsie Wright said all 5 photographs had been faked, and Francis Griffiths said 4 had been faked, but 1 was real. And they said Elsie had drawn the fairies from a book called Princess Mary's Gift Book by Arthur Shepperson. And this shows that sometimes people want to be stupid and they do not want to know the truth. And it shows that something called Occam's razor is true. And Occam's razor is not a razor that men shave with, but a law. And it says, "Entia non sunt multiplicanda praeter necessitatem," which is Latin, and it means no more things should be presumed to exist than are absolutely necessary. Which means that a murder victim is usually killed by someone known to them, and fairies are made out of paper, and you can't talk to someone who is dead.